Here we are, beautiful day in Mosto Wine Bar in Lagos, and funnily enough, I didn't bump into him in here. I saw him outside. I bump into him a lot. Obviously, good to see him now. Lovely day for it. How you doing, Mike?
Very good, thanks, Matthew. Very good. Good to see you here. Good to be in Mosto Wine Bar again.
Great place. Great wine bar.
What's the topic of today? You tell me the topic, I'll follow it.
Well, as it's such a nice day, it's so bright, and the wind's dropped, and I've got a nice vibe about where did NLP come from?
NLP. So NLP originated in the 1970s, around about 1972, 73. A group of people in California were exploring the human potential market. A young guy called Richard Bandler was pretty interested in working for his boss. And he, together with a guy called Frank Puslik, did a process called behavioural modelling, or NLP modelling, where they simulated unconsciously the behaviour patterns of this genius level therapist. And that's really how it all began. They needed to formalise it and package it, so Richard Bandler brought in a guy called John Grinder, who's now my colleague. I thought it would be a question itself, to which Grinder initially refused, because he thought therapy disrupted revolution, because it's a revolutionary time. And Grinder went in and supported them with providing a model. So NLP began as a modelling technology.
Right, so at that point, if I'm right, John Grinder was Professor of Linguistics at the university, is that right?
Yes, he had done his PhD. He had worked in the Miller Language Lab in New York. He had been in the army, been a US captain in the army, had gone full circle, become an anti-Vietnam protester, and he's got that energy to put him behind. But he was associate professor in linguistics, specialising in transformational grammar, and specialising in a subcategory which is really, really complex, called ontologism.
Right, so what was it you think that Bandler saw in what John was doing in terms of the linguistics that you might be able to unpack more what Fritz Perls was doing?
Well, what they saw on each other is Bandler, and there's an article I've written called The Impeccable Inception of NLP. It talks about both these guys' backgrounds. They both had very different backgrounds, but both sets of their personal experiences were really useful for these modelling projects. So Grinder had learned a unique way of learning languages quickly. At the time, he could speak 5 languages, and he now speaks 9. Where he goes into native culture, mimics the structure of the language, practices with the language that way, playing with the language, exploring it almost like a child. From there, he then builds a model in his head of how to speak the language. That's a natural assimilation. Bandler had been a shrinking, so he'd been very, very flexible behaviourally in acting as different people to avoid the gang culture in Oakland, California, but also to avoid arrest. So these two sets of behaviours were very, very good, particularly for Bandler in assimilating the patterns. But transformational grammar, as a discipline or as an academic subject, from Noam Chomsky, it changed the whole field of linguistics. So before that, the field of linguistics was focusing on semantics, the meaning of language, and transformational grammar looked at the processes and structure and syntax of language. Noam Chomsky believed that there's only 6 languages in the world. All the other languages are derivatives of each other, and that we all have a language organ. So it's almost like learning language is like building muscle. It was a metaphorical. So because of it, Grinder and Bandler thought that there's going to be something in the linguistic structures of pearls that will provide him with that model.
Right.
So he approached, and you've been on a few of Grinder's linguistics classes, so he approached John to provide his skill in utilising linguistic patterning to be able to code patterns.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. So then who? After Perls?
Satir was next. I went down to they did a modelling project on Satir. And she was, Perls was dead. So Grinder said when he saw the old films of Perls in action, that Bandler was a better Perls than Perls.
Right.
Satira was alive, so she was actually quite shocked after they'd modelled her and they could show her own pattern. She thought she was working a lot more intuitively. Yeah, but you know, she was very shocked. Then Ericsson was the most formalised one because by the time they got to Milton Ericsson, they had this sort of, they'd already modelled satiric pearls, put both of those sets of patterns into one model called the meta model. Yeah, and then with Ericsson, they kind of had this already experience, so they went down there, and Ericsson was working in trance, so they did the process of deep trance identification with Ericsson. Yeah, so they acted as if they were Ericsson and became Ericsson, really, and then stepped back and did the code. So that classic NLP was built on three key people: Milton Erickson, Fritz Perls, and Julius Satire. And it's all from modelling, and modelling, we did a talk the other day on tacit and explicit knowledge. Modelling is a transfer of tacit knowledge, yeah, and then making it explicit. So it goes the other way, right? So you're transferring the tacit knowledge through the unconscious absorption to make it, and then the actual coding of it makes it explicit.
I mean, from what I just read a book actually, I'm reading at the moment about Ericsson, of what I understand.
Did everyone go to America?
I think it's Epic Life. I think it's Epic Life. And it said, I was interested actually to hear that he was quite resistant to see or train anyone that didn't have a PhD. So,
well, he was, so the Ericksonian Foundation, it only allows members in who are professionals. So Ericsson didn't, I don't know if he didn't train anyone who did have a PhD, but he wanted to ensure that hypnosis was applied medically by doctors and professionals. So social workers, doctors, perhaps nurses at the lowest level, so that more junior level. Right? And the Ericksonian Foundation, as far as I'm aware, only accepts members who are professional psychologists, practicing psychologists or psychiatrists. Right. You know,
that's great.
Yeah, keeps it clean. Right. You know? But he was obviously open to Bandler and Grinder because he's a friend of Gregory Bateson's.
Right.
Yeah, and it was Gregory Bateson who sent down Bandler and Grinder initially to model Ericsson. Yeah, and the second time Bandler and Grinder went down, I believe they went with Julia Delosier, Leslie Cameron Bandler.
Right.
Yeah. Back Richard Bandler and John Grinder. Four people went down the second time. Then it expanded to include Robert Dills and Stephen Gilligan. I might have got some of the chronology wrong.
What sessions they were? That was what? I mean, what?
Well, it's a great story actually. That Stephen Gilligan was when Milton Erickson met Moshe Feldenkrais. Right. Yeah, and from Moshe Feldenkrais, John Grinder calls the Erickson of the body. Right. And I believe Gilligan was there when they hooked up Moshe Feldenkrais, whose work at the same time as Erickson's in California, you know, was becoming known. So Bandler and Grinder were Erickson's work known outside of that medical circle. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but because Moshe Feldenkrais was based in California, not Phoenix, his Feldenkrais work was quite popular, as far as I'm aware, in the university. In fact, let me get this right, the guy who brought NLP to England was a guy called David Gaster. David Gaster was a former Red Arrows pilot. Right. And he was married to Mia Siegel's daughter. Mia Siegel's Moshe Feldenkrais' business partner. So Grinder taught him, Grinder wanted to learn how to fly planes. So Grinder taught David Gaster, they did an exchange. David Gaster taught Grinder how to fly planes. Grinder taught Gaster NLP. David Gaster brought NLP to the UK. But at Moshe Feldenkrais, never modelled Feldenkrais directly, but his work was quite prevalent in that early NLP because it is, you know, like Erickson's work. But Grinder said it was you know, the style of Erickson's work, not purely their work.
And he wasn't too happy about him laying his hands on him. Was that right? Was that the guy?
Yeah. So Erickson didn't want Moshe Feldenkrais to touch him.
Right.
Yeah. This is written out of one of these. I think you might have written that book you just mentioned.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So Erickson and Moshe Feldenkrais, Erickson's was disabled. He was partially disabled one side of the body. You know, he had difficulty moving. He was in chronic pain. So to Moshe Feldenkrais, Ericsson is an ideal target for his work. So apparently, Moshe Feldenkrais was trying to jump in, and Ericsson was like, gave some metaphor about, you know, having a fly swat to swat an annoying fly. But both of these guys, they were a bit prickly, you know, so they didn't connect it. I think a battle of the titans, you know, but it would have been an interesting one to watch.
Yeah, I mean, that was on film.
But you think about it, what the Band of Grinder Gears did the Band of Grinder Gears is 75 released through to 1981, 82. And in that documentary, Richard Bandler documentary, he says, John has said the same thing, they were never full business partners. So they each had their own companies. One was called Not Limited, one was called Not Unlimited. Yeah? So they would go and do their own thing, yeah, and then they would come back to do NLP. They were kind of gravitating towards slightly different styles of NLP, where meta programs was being developed, originally by Leslie Cameron Bandler and Bandler. Yeah? With him, and like Grinder tells some stories about when they first started working with meta programs, that he introduced the concept as a bit of a joke, to see who could get their content. So the ideology started to shift. Yeah? But I don't think, as far as I'm aware, there was ever a major divorce between Bandler and Grinder. They just shifted apart. And then some of the difficult situations came after in the lawsuits. But Richard says in note that when they worked together, we're like two songwriters coming together. Yeah? When they worked together, it's amazing, but they did their own thing. You know, this is part of the video that I plan to talk about today, is, you know, John Grinder then looked at NLP with 10 years of hindsight and said if he was doing it again, yeah, he would incorporate different styles of patterns and different testing methodologies to ensure congruence to the client. So he then met Carmen Bostic St Clair, and they started to develop a whole set of new processes, particularly geared at coaching. Which wasn't really coaching with the advice, but particularly geared at change work. And also, then John, he kind of withdrew from the mainstream NLP and started doing a lot of business consultancy with Carmen. You know, because John had done the linguistics, he'd been a captain in the army, he'd worked for the CIA, he'd been undercover,
been around.
He'd done a lot of stuff, but he'd never done business.
Right.
So part of his attraction to Carmen was she was a CEO of an organisation, 37 different subsidiaries. So that to Grinder was an interesting challenge. So then they use a lot of new code patterns they tested in business contexts. And then, jumping forward, when I met Johnny Carmen in 1998, I was a participant in the seminar. I got myself in the front row. And I was already an NLP trainer. I'd already established my company. It wasn't called the NLP Academy at the time, it was called a different name. I brought people as an online practitioner course to their program. Right? And it's just like a whole new world opened up.
It's really interesting from what I understand. Like, it seems like John, and I guess Richard as well, but for what we're talking about, John here is constantly pushing the patterns forwards, always wanting to stretch and evolve NLP, which I wanted to ask you about what he's doing now and how that pertains to what you're doing here in May.
Right. Well, we're all pushing the patterns forward and have done. John, Carmen and I, ever since we worked together, 2003, 2004, where we developed new patterns every year. When we used to get together twice a year before COVID, we would bring whatever we were working with together to the table. And quite a lot of time, there was a lot of overlap. But recently, mainly because of COVID, John wasn't traveling, he did a lot more coaching with clients. Yeah? So we were doing a course actually called the New Code for Extraordinary Coaching, where we brought in outside people who weren't on the course as demo subjects. Now, despite the fact I worked with John and Carmen since 2003-ish, yeah, I'd never seen John Grinder do a demo with a cold client, because all the demos he has done, right, and he's been to, were in courses. Right. And it's different because the people are primed in the courses, they've already received a lot of stuff, but seeing John work with a cold client was extraordinary. Yeah? And there were 3 clients there, one of them mostly all with medical issues. Yeah? And he then developed or it kind of been developing it since the COVID breakout. But if you like, all the patterns came into fruition in that weekend. And he now calls it Emergent New Code NLP. Yeah, and it's the hottest pattern in New Code NLP, or in NLP in general. It really, really is a fantastic. It's different from the optimized states. It does utilize congruency signals. It uses a thing called the archives of a person accessing various components of the archives. In my article, I call them the vaults. Yeah? And in tacit experience, you've got so many different components of tacit experience we spoke about last course that can be amalgamated as a resources, working through trial and error at the unconscious level, so you get the right set of choices. This pattern's fucking amazing. I mean, it is out of this world.
So no one's would have heard of it.
No one's heard of it. Only the people on that course. Yeah,
wow.
and there was about 30 people. It was a small course.
Right.
So, what day is the day?
Tuesday.
So last Saturday, gone Saturday before, got a message from John. I'm coming to Portugal.
Right. Wow.
And with Carmen.
Wow.
And that's my birthday on Sunday. It's the fucking best birthday present. I mean, we weren't the best, but it's a fantastic birthday present. Yeah? Right? Because he's coming to Portugal. I've not seen John and Carmen since 2000 in person since 2019. Yeah? All right? And he said, I want to teach this new pattern. So the last week we've been arranging, getting a bigger venue, rewriting all the marketing, rewriting all the content, because this course, for the first time ever, is going to incorporate Emergent New Code NLP. Yeah, and what that is all the new stuff. So the original New Code NLP is now called Original New Code NLP. You've got Emergent New Code NLP, and you've got Classic. This course is going to be so rich, and we'll have people come here from all over the world. You know yourself, Matt. You were there last year and the year before. Yeah. We're going to fill this town up of Lagos with people from all over the world, so they can enjoy not just the fantastic courses, but the delights of this town, including this very beautiful wine bar that we're in now called Moshtu, and their wonderful staff and food. We want to say a big thank you and a big shout out to the Moshtu staff for letting us in here today to shoot their video. Big thank you to that customer over there, right, who's trying a bit of lunch and he's hearing me talking very, very loudly.
That wine smells amazing though.
But we might have a bit of food now and enjoy
How
wine.
can anyone that's watching this that wants to get involved in these brand new patterns that John's been developing, how can someone get down here? How can someone book that place?
All you've got to do is go to nlpacademy.co.uk. Yeah, click on the courses tab, NLP Practitioner International Coaching Certification. Live here in Lagos. We also do it online, but we have venues simultaneously. Make sure I get these all in, Matthew. In Tunisia, in India, in Canada, Guatemala, and the Philippines.
I think so.
I've got them all. Yeah. So if you want to take the course in one of those venues, you can. John, Carmen, and I stream in live to that venue, into the venue. They're facilitated by a satellite trainer. I would recommend you get to Lagos. It's a beautiful part of the world with people from all over the world, both living here and working here. You know, and the weather is fantastic in May. The company is brilliant. What more can I say?
Cheers, mate. See you next time.
Obrigado, senor.
De nada. Até a próxima vez.